Hey, welcome back. So today I'm going to set you all up with a quick lesson about fermentation. If you like pickles, you will probably like this. You can choose any vegetables, non-leafy green vegetables in your house. I have chosen some carrots and some celery. If you'd like to use a different vegetable than carrots or celery, a great choice would be green beans, fresh green beans, or asparagus, or cucumbers. And cucumbers would be really great to try later on in the summer when you can find them fresh at the farmer's market or in your yard. So first, you'll want to choose a jar, and I am going to choose this mason jar. It has a wide mouth and straight sides. You could also choose something that is not made for canning, something that would normally end up in the recycling bin. So I think this might have been a spaghetti jar, spaghetti sauce jar. As long as it's clean and dry, and that the lid doesn't have any sort of corrosion or rust, you can use that. You can use a smaller jar than this, or you can use a larger jar than this. I think this used to be ochre jar, and it's missing a lid, but it can still be used for fermentation projects. So you'll want to cut your vegetables and put them in the jar. They can be cut into small pieces. They can be cut to the height of the jar. Their length can be the height of the jar, which is what I've done with the carrots and the celery. So I'm not going to show you how I've cut these, but I have cut these. I'm going to put them in the jar. Fill it up. These could be cut into rounds or little chunks. The larger the pieces are, though, the easier it is to keep them underneath the brine. And that's really important because if they're not underneath the brine that you'll be making, they can't be preserved. They'll end up just rotting. And things that are above the brine are more likely to mold. And just like with the honey ferment, you do not want a ferment to mold. So I have almost filled up this jar with carrots and celery, and I'm going to try and push everything down below what I'm calling the neck of the jar. And you'll see why a little bit later. I think I can fit one more carrot right here. So my jar is full, carrots and celery, and now I need to make a brine. So in order to keep the bad bacteria out of our ferment, we want to make sure we create a salt brine that's between 1 and 3% salinity, which means that there's 1 to 3% salt per volume of water. And for what we are working on, I'm going to show you how to make a salt brine. So normally we put in about 2 tablespoons per quart of water, but a quart is 4 cups of water. We don't need that much for this container. So I'll start you all out with 2 cups of water. 2 cups of water. We'll go ahead and carefully pour this in. So for 2 cups of water, we want a little less than a tablespoon of salt. And you can use any type of salt. If you use salt with iodine, it might discolor your vegetables a little bit, especially if you're using cabbage. But it won't hurt. It'll still work. So I'm using some pink Himalayan salt. You can use what you have. I'm going to go ahead and stir this up to help dissolve the salt. We're creating a salt solution. Stir it up as much as I can to let that salt dissolve. And then I'm going to pour that over the vegetables. And I'm going to pour it, make sure I'm pouring it above all the vegetables. And then I want to make sure to keep all of these vegetables below the water for the full amount of time. So this is going to take weeks. This will take more than, this isn't a project to finish in days. This project will take weeks. So I've filled this up almost up to the neck, or I have filled it up to the neck. It's almost up to the top. There are a few different ways you can keep your vegetables underneath the brine. One is to simply wedge them in there, and that's what I have done. You can also use these little nifty gadgets. I've picked these up at Three Rivers Market. It's a glass weight made for wide mouth jars, so it fits in there perfectly. I'm going to have a little bit of overflow, so you'll get to watch that happen. Oh, maybe not. So that can work, and I'm not sure if you can tell, but there are no food solids floating, and there's brine above both the weight and the carrots and celery. Another method you can use, and those weights are new to me. This is the first time I've ever used them. What I usually do is either use cut carrot pieces in any type of vegetable ferment, and you can wedge those down and hook them in underneath the neck of the jar. And make sure they are covered up too, because they will get moldy if they are above the liquid. So you can see that I made an X shape with the carrots, and those are holding the vegetables underneath. Another thing you could do, if you have baggies at your house, use a clean baggie and put the open baggie into your jar and push the baggie out so it fills up the space. And then if you have any leftover brine, you probably will, then you'll want to put the leftover brine into that open baggie, and then you can put the lid on top. And the volume of the water that's inside the plastic baggie fills out all the spaces and also keeps your vegetables underneath the liquid. You may have to use a small dish or a cup if you use the baggie method, because all you'll be relying on is the weight of the water, and sometimes that's not enough if your vegetables are really buoyant. So what I have chosen for this particular experiment is to use the weight. So I'm going to leave all of that. And I have, this is fine, this is ready to go. But at Three Rivers they also have these little one-way valves that allow the carbon dioxide to release itself from the liquid. And you can just put that on. It looks like a baby bottle. So it has a little opening that allows the off gas to come out. So then you would just put this in your house and wait probably at least 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And slowly the bacteria eat the sugar carbs in the carrots and the celery, and they produce a little bit of alcohol and a whole lot of carbon dioxide. And as they process the food, they also lower the pH of everything in the jar. So water is around 7 on the pH scale of basic to acid, but we want that bacteria to lower the pH all the way down to 2.8 to 3.2 pH. And it will do this gradually over the next few weeks. It takes about a week for the first stage to get started. So in order to grow, these bacteria need food, which you're giving it with the carrots and the celery. It needs warmth. It's going to get that from your house. It needs water, which you've added. There's also water in the vegetables. And it needs time. So fermentation is a process that converts glucose into lactic acid and a little bit of ethanol and carbon dioxide in very small amounts. You want to keep this above 59 degrees, probably under 72 degrees, but it can be all the way up to about 85 degrees without any trouble. Just like with the honey, the colder your location is, the slower fermentation will happen. The warmer your area is, the faster fermentation will happen. So we'll mostly be working with lactic acid bacteria. These are the ones that create lactic acid. Many of these are lactobacillus, and there's lactobacillus on our bodies, in our bodies, all over the place. So fermentation happens in 3 different phases. The first phase will be initiated by one set of bacteria, and they are going to raise the concentration of the acidity in the container. But once they do their job, they die because the environment is too acidic for them. Then the next set of bacteria take over, and they raise the acidity a little bit more. So the pH lowers and it becomes more acidic, and then the concentration of acidity is also changed. So once the second set of bacteria does what they need to do, they die. And the last stage of bacteria is the final stage, and this will lower your pH to around 3.4, and this bacteria is also what ends up giving fermented vegetables or pickles their distinctive tangy flavor. So sometimes you see pickles that are canned, and that's usually from a vinegar process, and that's not fermentation at all, even though vinegar is made by fermentation. But using the vinegar to preserve something is just a canning method. It's not fermentation. We are going to use the bacteria, and this is going to be a live, ongoing process where the bacteria are what creates the preservation process. So I'll share some instructions and a little bit more technique, some more tips, and some technical information as written material so you can follow along. And I hope you do decide to try this project. It will take a few weeks. I would say at least 3, maybe even up to 6 weeks before this project is finished. You want to make sure that all of your food solids are completely submerged underneath the brine. If you see any floating food, you want to very carefully remove that with a clean utensil. You don't want anything floating up at the top. But you may start to see something that looks kind of like wax paper, or something that's a little bit opaque, like a film developing on top. That's not ideal, but it doesn't mean that your project is spoiled. If you do see that, I would suggest using a clean napkin or clean paper towel or some sort of utensil to very carefully remove that. Because if you allow, what that is called is KAHM, K-A-H-M, and that's an overgrowth of bacteria or yeast that you don't want in your ferment. It's not bad, but it's just unbalanced. And you want this to move through the process in a balanced way. And sometimes either the sugars that are in the food, or the bacteria on your food, or the bacteria and yeast in your house might contribute to this. And don't worry if it happens, you can just very carefully remove it. But I do suggest removing it, because if you allow it to continue to grow, it will create a little surface on the top of your brine, and that allows things like mold to develop, and you don't want mold to develop. So mold would look like a fuzzy white or gray or blue or black growth on top. It would look kind of bumpy and frilly. You would see the filaments of the mold on the top. Once you see it on the top, it's all the way through your whole ferment, so there's nothing that you can do about that. And if you do see mold, please try again. Please throw away. I hate to waste food, but you don't want to eat moldy food, and that's really the only negative thing that would happen with this project, is that it gets moldy. So never eat moldy food. So just like with the honey ferment, this vegetable ferment will off gas. So it's kind of like we're getting to see our bacteria have little tubes. So the bacteria processes the sugars and goes through the digestive process, and then the bacteria release carbon dioxide, and you'll start to see after about a week you'll start to see little bubbles come up, and that's from the bacteria. The bacteria created carbon dioxide that has to be released. So just like the honey ferment, you want a lid on only to keep pet hair or dust or insects that might find their way into your house out of this. None of that will hurt your ferment, but it has an ick factor, and most of us don't want hair or dust or bugs in our food. So I always put a lid on mine, whether or not it's a towel or an actual jar lid. And I went ahead and replaced that one-way valve with this regular lid. So I'm going to close it, so it's pretty tight, and then I'm going to release it about a half turn, and that allows a lot of the off gas that the bacteria release to come out on its own, and it will get active. You probably see bubbles with this one, and then I'm going to make sure to keep this on a plate or in a bowl, because this vegetable ferment is more likely to cause the brine to come out and leak over the sides, and that would make a big mess, and it will start to smell like pickles. And so it's best to keep a pickle mess contained. At least that's what I think, and your family would probably appreciate it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the stream underneath the area where I post this material. And I hope you have fun. Please try other vegetables. Cucumbers would be great this summer. You could actually make pickles. That will require a little bit more salt and a little bit of a different technique, but I can help you all do that too. So have fun. Try some vegetables. You can try cauliflower. You can even try tomatoes, a little cherry tomatoes, but those only take a few days. And then I would put those in the refrigerator. You could try, what else could you try? You could try radishes, all sorts of things. Look in the refrigerator and ask your parents what you could use for a project that will turn into something that you can share with them in about a month. So I look forward to seeing your work. And remember, ask questions in the stream. I'll help you out. Talk to you soon. Bye.